Well, Stu, this is our 25th episode.
Yes, it is.
And the 25th is right around the corner, the birth of baby Jesus.
Ah, you devil, you getting all that in there. That's wonderful.
I had to, because I can now say Christmas again, now that Trump is president. I don't have to acknowledge fake holidays like Kwanzaa.
Jeez.
Not like Trump is any Christian, let's face it. He's more like the devil. But speaking of devils, well, we're going to have so much material in 2025 as that shit show goes on. But right now we have a continuous shit show, which is the spectacle of Joe Biden's last days in office. Now, we already discussed how he pardoned.
Sickening.
Sickening. Is no excuse, and he's a hypocrite and a liar and a plagiarist. But now this, I think, is even worse than pardoning his own son. Now, many defended him, said it was as a son. What do you expect? I don't think that's a good excuse.
I agree.
But
especially after saying on a number of occasions that won't happen.
He's very, he's as demented as he is. He's still lying very flagrantly. But he also granted 1,500 grants of clemency, and it was a very broad and sweeping grant. So it was for people who were in home confinement for non-violent offenses and not sex offenders or terrorists. I don't know why he exempted terrorists, since his party seems to embrace Hamas, but what do I know? So there was a judge in Pennsylvania, state judge, his name is Michael Conahan. He got the benefit of this this grant of clemency, and what he did is so vile and repulsive that it is a further stain on a failed presidency, okay? He was a judge, and he was convicted of sending juveniles to a for-profit detention center for more than $2 million in kickbacks.
Oh, you want to shoot him.
He received for this not the full sentence. He got a 17-year sentence. I mean, he's older. He's Conahan. He's from Pennsylvania. And you have to wonder, being that Biden always claims he's from Scranton, when they granted this broad grant, what they were thinking.
So it's vile, the action of releasing him, giving him clemency for that kind of activity. There's no good cause for
taking young children and basically ruining their lives. And so, I mean, and the story doesn't end there. This Judge Conahan, or former judge, he got out of prison during COVID, and he's been in home release. So that's how he got swept into this. And so now he has been granted clemency, and I guess he can go out on the streets, and, I'm sure he had to forfeit all the money he grifted, but this is a guy.
He'll be visited by some of those he imprisoned as youths.
Well, if it was me and I was one of those kids, I'd beat him to death with a baseball bat, because he deserves it, because what he did is so bad. And there's more to this. Because of what he did, this was one of the biggest scandals in Pennsylvania. They had to vacate thousands of juvenile convictions. Thousands. And one of the mothers,
whole past.
and one of
Cases over which he presided.
exactly disgraceful, totally compromising these kids' lives. Doesn't give a damn for some money. This
scum, piece of scum.
He is not baby Jesus. I can tell you that. Nor is Joe Biden. So one of the mothers has spoken out about this because her son was one of the victims of this horrible, horrible crime. Her son killed himself, committed suicide in detention. Her name is Sandy Fonzo. And there were other parents who spoke out about the damage this had done to their kid. And this is who low IQ Joe, one of the worst presidents we've ever had. I'm sorry, there is no forgiveness for this. And the excuse that the White House is making, well, this was a broad sweep. He was trying to be magnanimous.
Every goddamn name.
They claim they did it. I don't believe that. I believe this judge probably was a friend or whatever, because and who grants a grant of clemency this broad without checking every person? It's absolutely outrageous. That guy should have been sent back to prison and let him rot there till he dies.
Sure.
And another defense was, well, he would have served his time up in 2000 by 2026. Well,
That's all right.
yeah, as well he should have. As well he should have. This is a moral outrage. I don't care what you can say about Donald Trump. No one, I've never heard anything so repugnant as this. And truthfully, I don't think.
Oh, I don't want to argue with you on that one. I mean, it may not be quite as repugnant, but some of his releases, including.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we ought to quibble on that one there.
Well, I mean, Jared Kushner's dad being one of them.
Oh,
but
the lady who got all the money for him, the wife of the guy who was indicted, and then he went to Switzerland.
Oh, that was Bill Clinton who did.
Oh, was that Clinton?
Yeah, you're talking about Mark.
Oh, that's right. That's who I'm talking about.
Mark Rich, the tax cheat.
Yes.
But there's a big difference being a tax cheat and like sending young kids to prison.
I got it.
So the next time I hear a sanctimonious Democrat question me or talk to me about like Trump and how what an outrage he is, I will point to this. And more importantly, this brings into the question the pardon power and the clemency power that the president has. It's based out of the Constitution. The way it has been abused by the last couple of years. Yeah, if any constitutional amendment should be made, this power should be limited or taken away. Because
in some fashion, it needs to be adjusted because they're not civil enough to apply the Constitution properly.
Or just simple moral principles, because none of these people have moral principles anymore. But now Biden, he's on vacation. He's at his beach house that he got through the graft and corruption of his whole family, living large at the Christmas tree, probably sipping eggnogs and drooling it out of his mouth because he could barely walk. And there was actually even an article in the Wall Street Journal recently about how his aides covered up.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I would suggest people read it for anyone who got gaslighted by the Biden cabal telling us how he was totally on top of things.
From day one.
Yeah, including his failed vice president, Kamala. Unhappy Christmas to the Biden family. Especially Dr. Jill, the fake doctor. So anyway, Stu, speaking of moral outrages...
Yeah, I could do that.
I know you're onto another false.
Well, it's a tale of two stories, actually. The first one is, and they're similar, but there's a twist at the end of the second one. So the first one is really about it comes in about 1987. A black teenager named Tawana Brawley was living in Dutchess County. That's about 75 miles north of Manhattan. She accused 6 white men of abducting her and raping her, as well as some other kinds of serious acts. I'm putting my glasses on here.
I think they even accused that she had feces smeared on her.
Yes, they did. Yes. And so magically 3 advisors surfaced, one of them being Al Sharpton, and then 2 lawyers, one a guy named Alton Maddox and a fellow named C. Vernon Mason. It's got such a nice proper ring to it, C. Vernon Mason. They came out with a lot of allegations. They said the Ku Klux Klan was involved. They said the Irish Republican Army was involved.
Yeah, the IRA is really concerned about some teenager in Dutchess County.
So, and then, of course, celebrities jumped in. Don King, the boxing promoter, you may remember him because he was involved with Muhammad Ali. And then
he also, wasn't he go to jail at some point? Or?
I don't recall his fate. He promised $100,000 toward Brawley's education. And Bill Cosby jumped in and said, I'll give $10K for information leading to arrest and conviction.
That's rather ironic.
Okay. Well, as things started to sound a little, they smell, as the allegations started to smell, the New York State Attorney General, a guy named Robert Abrams at the time, led a months-long investigation into the allegations. A grand jury found the allegations to be a complete hoax. Maddox was suspended from the practice of law. He died last year.
Good riddance.
C. Vernon Mason was disbarred.
Is he still alive?
I didn't have any indication of his death. I think an article I read would have indicated that. Sharpton went on to become an NBC or one of their stations.
And a presidential candidate.
And whatever else you care to call him.
A scumbag.
All right.
A fraud. A race-baiting poverty.
None of them ever apologized. Now, one defendant, a guy named Steve Pagonis, was then an assistant DA in Dutchess County. And he sued them for defamation. And I think Maddox ended up paying something on that. But I don't believe Sharpton ever paid a nickel. He had his assets at the time, if I recall. They were somehow under the name of, under title of other organizations and people. He had essentially no assets, he claimed. I don't care where, and I don't know where Tawana Brawley is. She may have been in Washington, D.C. some years ago, but who cares? Example 2, case number 2, 2006. A lady named Crystal Mangum, a black stripper, was hired to perform at a party hosted by the Duke University lacrosse team.
Well, it was a fraternity party, right? Or was it? And they were Duke Lacrosse.
I think they were, well, I don't know if they were all in the same fraternity, but as I understood it, was the party was hosted by the team.
Okay.
And so she later accused 3 players of rape, sodomy, and some other acts. She picked out guys. This is the first mistake made by the prosecutor. It was out of a PowerPoint series of all white players. And normally you're supposed to include, always you're supposed to include some people who are not even possible defendants, albeit you want them to somehow resemble and be of the same general demographic. So that's a bad beginning at stacking the deck. Immediately, Duke University suspended the rest of the Duke lacrosse season before any charges had been brought. And there were cries of white privilege. And I have to say that when you saw these guys, the 3 defendants, they could look like white privilege.
Clearly.
But the prosecutor disregarded their own statements of innocence as well as the statements of others of the innocence of those 3. And most importantly, this is just mind-blowing, there was no DNA evidence of any one of those 3 defendants on the woman's body. That's just probably physically impossible. The 3 were arrested. The state attorney general started to investigate because of what smelled again. Same kind of stench as in the Tawana Brawley matter. And he found that the allegations were, after months, a hoax. And strangely, it's uncommon, he declared them to be innocent. You normally don't see that. You'll see a dismissal, but the actual prosecutor was prosecuted for perjury and then was later disbarred. This is failure.
Don't forget to note what party the prosecutor was. He was a Democrat, a white liberal Democrat who wanted to make a statement, etc., and use these boys because he was probably resentful of them. Yeah.
Just horrible. Yeah. So a statement was made by the 3 defendants after the state attorney general had reached his conclusion, and I found it touching. It is impossible, they said, to fully describe what we, our families, and team endured. As we said from day one, we're innocent. But it took 394 days and the intervention of the North Carolina AG, Attorney General, before our innocence was formally declared. Imagine the lives of those 3 defendants as they had been changed. They eventually sued Duke University, oh, by the way, for their part in the post-charge sham, and there was a confidential settlement. Okay, here's the twist in this case that separates it from the Brawley saga. Just a few days ago, 3 or 4 days ago, the fair Crystal, the stripper from Dutchess County, admitted in a filmed interview that she had lied. She said, quote, "I want them to know that I love them," unquote. Now, would you want to just punch her in the mouth? So that's all you got to say? I think she loves. I love them. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So she said some bad therapy in prison.
She said she hoped the 3 would forgive her. Are you kidding me? You got to be much more of a man than I to say, forgive them for that? Eddie, now the kicker, the very last kicker. The kicker is that when she gave this interview to a reporter, She was in prison. And why was she in prison? She was in prison for the 2013 murder of her boyfriend. This is the lady that they were all trying to support.
This sounds like a good example of toxic feminism, of something we've discussed before. But in this woman's case, she's obviously a seriously troubled person. She's obviously a violent person. She is not the worst of your story. It is the people who have authority. Duke University threw those boys out of school without justification. They acted rashly because...
Were they thrown out of school?
I think, yes. They all went to other universities.
I didn't know if they've been...
They went to other very well-regarded universities, as I recall. And the boys, I think, were from New Jersey or something like that. And they went to a private school. They were privileged. But, I remember at the time of the story, I bet, as bad as this is, why are these boys hiring a stripper anyway?
Oh, please, I don't want to tell you that story about my time.
I don't. I've already heard about the burlesque too. No more. Yeah, the Baltimore burlesque show.
No. It was a different story. I read a different.
But I do understand, they're fraternity boys. They're getting drunk.
What do you think about the prosecutor? The legal system fell apart.
Well, the reason it did is because a lot of prosecutors are opportunistic scumbags like Alvin Bragg and Rudy Giuliani, I will use as another example. They often bring specious cases to advance the political interests. Now, in Giuliani's case, he was very successful in doing that because he got to be mayor of New York. He certainly wouldn't have he brought a bunch of cases against a lot of financial professionals. A lot of them got thrown out on appeal, but no one cared. He was, kind of viewed as like the savior. I mean, even Elliot Spitzer similarly brought a bunch of cases.
Client number 9?
Yeah, client number 9. These people, their egos, their corruption, it will stop at nothing, and they don't care whose lives they destroy. And as far as Al Sharpton is concerned, he's one of the most repulsive people. Not only has he lied about this, he's been involved in all kinds of treachery. He inspired violence in the Crown Heights riots. He has made anti-Semitic comments, yet the Democrats allow him at their convention and allow him to speak. So what does that say about a party who wants to give us lectures about race and gender and all the rest, and they embrace of men? And by the way, Al Sharpton has a not-for-profit that he uses to funnel his money. Now, that not-for-profit basically shakes down corporations and the like because he'll threaten to protest them, boycott them, and accuse them of race, and then they just pay him off. He's been running a fraud. I mean, if I do not understand how he has not been thoroughly investigated, because I'm sure there's a lot of dirty dealing that goes on with him.
But I'm concerned about what happens in times of turmoil and crisis or difficult events coming to pass, and how people respond under those circumstances. And they get caught up in a maelstrom, a torrent of... They don't wait for facts to be investigated and proved. People jump, and with all the 24/7 reporting that goes on, people don't wait. And I that's a dangerous thing, and to move forward and reach conclusions without sufficient facts.
It's another example of young people's lives being altered by these events. It's totally disgusting.
Yep.
But you know what? Speaking of fake rape allegations, let's talk about George Stephonopplis, one of the most arrogant, short, repulsive men ever. He started his career working as the press secretary to Bill Clinton, as well as his spokesman or his advisor during that horrible 8 years in Washington, D.C. And may I add, when Bill Clinton came into office, George Stephonopplis declared, "We are going to put an end to the Reagan Revolution." Now, 2 years after Clinton was in office, the Republicans took control of both houses of Congress. And for the first time in 60 years, it was one of the most historical defeats of a president in American history. I mean, it was amazing the way they were repudiated. So they did not, according to arrogant George Stephonopplis, ever ever put an end to the Reagan Revolution. As a matter of fact, the Reagan Revolution bit those losers in the ass. Now, we all know Bill Clinton was a serial sex abuser of women and a rapist, okay? At least according to Juanita Broderick, he was never convicted of this, but at the end of the day, many people viewed her as a credible witness. Now, let's fast forward to today. George Stephonopplis is now on Good Morning America, and he's like a big figure at ABC News. And he, during the course of an interview or on TV, he mentioned multiple times, I think about 10 times, that Donald Trump had been convicted of rape in interviews and the like. And it was in reference to the Eugene Carroll, whatever her name is, right? Yeah. And truthfully, Trump was never really convicted of rape. He was found in a court to be, civil court, not criminal, of sexual abuse, and there was a verdict against him. Now I'm sure he has appealing that. I don't know how that will all end up. Now, George was sued, and ABC was sued by Trump in a defamation claim, and his case was probably frivolous because it's hard to prove defamation. And you could argue that, Stephonopplis didn't really have malice, although I'm not so sure since he is an avid partisan Democrat and they all have proven that they hate, Donald Trump with a passion. A matter of fact, so much so that they wasted time on prosecutions and that have all fallen apart mostly. So last week or this weekend, I believe, Bob Iger agreed to a settlement with Trump and his attorneys to avoid going to depositions in a trial, probably concerned about the impact it would have on the business of ABC. And they figured, so they're paying $15 million to Trump's future presidential library, which should be in like not Jersey City, in Atlantic City or some trashy location like that. And they could have strippers there, Stu. And then they're also paying his legal expenses of $1 million.
Look, they're just one of a huge number of corporations jumping on the bandwagon,
right,
to protect themselves against venom.
They're all getting down on bended knee. Now, what's funny about it, though, is, even though I think it was, and then they were concerned that this is going to have a chilling effect and other media companies are going to be afraid to criticize it legitimately. But what's funny is George Stephonopplis, I don't think I've ever heard him call Bill Clinton a rapist or a serial sex abuser or a woman. And there's a lot of proof that he was. And his entire career is based out of working for and promoting a guy who abuses women. And so for him to get on TV and, start using the rape term so loosely is beyond the most hypocritical thing. He's a repulsive person. Unfortunately, I don't think he probably would have been ultimately found to have defamed Trump because that's hard to prove. But what he is guilty of is just being a sanctimonious, arrogant buffoon, even as he is aged from the Clinton era. And he apparently may leave ABC News when his contract is up because they probably won't pay him the same as he's getting now. And more importantly, I think he's kind of outraged that they sold him down the river. But frankly, I don't have much sympathy for that piece of garbage. But it's interesting that we have a rape case. We've had 2 rape stories, all of which...
Where are our minds?
Yeah. The thing is, they undermine legitimate rape cases when they make false allegations of rape. And the Tawana Brawley story, the Duke Lacrosse, because a lot of women are afraid to even come forward. And this is the consequence of liberals playing the race game and all the rest.
But have we had enough rape for the day?
Happy New Year. Do you have any? We've really taken a dark turn during this season of the birth of baby Jesus. And, but what do you think?
I can help.
I know you can't, Stu. I know how you are. You always have to ruin my fun by being positive.
I could help. So I go out on the streets a lot. I meet people, and things happen when I meet people. So the other day, just 3-4 days ago, I was dressed in one of my old pairs of jeans and sneaks and an old coat. And
So I guess you weren't wearing Maison Margiela.
whatever that is, I'm sure I wasn't wearing it. So I get down to one of my dives in Chinatown. This one's on Bayard Street, the intersection of Elizabeth and Bayard, for those who are interested. And the title of you're not going to like this. The title of this place is Fish Balls. That's two of the words in their title are fish balls.
I could think of another
What kind of fish?
bowl.
I've never ascertained what kind of fish is involved. It's compressed white balls of fish, something or other, along with some rice noodles. And so I go to this place. I get the fish balls and noodles with soy sauce and peanut sauce, and I'm happy as a clam. I take it out and I walk west into Columbus Park. I doubt you've ever been in Columbus Park, but it's adjacent to Baxter Street, which is parallel to Broadway.
I may have been. I just didn't note the name. And by the way, I'm surprised they haven't changed the name.
Right. So they've got a lot of, in this place, it's on the edge of Chinatown, and there are lots of Chinese folks who go in there just to relax. It's a place that's safe for them. And they play card games. They play, games with not dice, but little tiles and that kind of stuff. And they sit and they eat. Well, I go in there and I sit down. I take a seat on a bench, and there's a Chinese lady next to me or near me, 2 feet away. And I said hi, and she said hi. And then she's eating something out of a white plastic bag, a takeout bag, and I start to open my little container of fish balls and noodles. And she says to me, in limited English, but she says, well, is that enough food for you for lunch? And I said, yeah, really. I've had a larger one, and it's too much on other occasions. And she looked a little perplexed. And so I continue to eat. She continues to eat, but she takes out a pastry, and it turns out to be a pastry, warm roll with pork with a sweet sauce on it. It's great stuff. All Asian pastry places have this stuff. And she says, here, take this. And I said, no, I'm quite full. And she insisted. And I said, I was starting to feel as if I'd insult her if I didn't take it. So I took it. Then I said, well, I'm full, but I got to start eating this because she's not going to, if I just walk away with it, she'll be fearful I'll throw it away or something. So I start eating it. It was quite good. At this point, a guy walks up with a baby carriage. Unusual in that park. And it was just odd. But a guy walks up. She says to me that my baby's in that carriage. I said, well, that's very nice. The man sits down on the bench next to that white bag of food, and the woman walks away with the baby carriage. And he goes to the plastic bag, and he takes out some food, and he offers it to me. And I said, no, I am just too full. I can't take any more. And he puts it back in the bag. And I left thanking him. As she walked away, she had said, I am so happy you took the food. Those are her exact words. I am so happy you took the food. And then the man offered the food. And then I end up walking away. And I've come to think an odd thing. She would, what I expect were very limited resources. These aren't a lot of rich families over there. There are some, but I don't think this was a case of that. She goes away, I walk away, and I started to think as the day went on, I think she believed, because of my dress and I was unshaven, I think she believed that I was, yes, I do. I believe she thought that I needed that food.
Right. And she doesn't realize you live here in the ghetto.
And I thought, as I look back on it, especially when he came out with additional food, they hadn't had much time to communicate. I said, isn't that the sweetest thing? That these people are giving me some food because they thought I needed it. And that's from people who probably don't have very much to give. And so with that, I say that's all in the Christmas spirit. And I think it's wonderful. They work so hard, many of these Chinese folks down there, and here they are doing this good deed. I say Merry Christmas.
Well, Stu, that's a very nice story, but am I allowed to comment on any of this? Or
of course.
Okay, first of all, Stu, we need to take you shopping. and get you a new wardrobe. It doesn't have to be expensive, but you can't go walk around look like a degenerate. Okay, number one. That's going to be my Christmas present. We're going to do a fashion makeover.
We're not.
Yes.
We're not.
Now, as far as the unshaven part, every morning I make sure I'm shaved and freshly shaven, and I want you to do the same thing.
You're 0 for 2. You're 0 for 2.
And now number 3, do you have all your hepatitis shots?
Hepatitis.
You can get it for hepatitis A and B.
Why am I getting hepatitis?
Because you go to these places in the middle of nowhere. God knows what's in that food.
You're 0 for 3.
The fish bowl.
You're fish balls.
Whatever the hell it is. And you're going in a park in the cold weather, sitting there eating this stuff. Of course they're going to think you're a homeless.
Oh, God, that was it. You're going a step beyond. I was not only didn't I have enough resources, but I was homeless. You're saying homeless.
Neither do they know. You were like you probably have like $100 million stashed away in some Swiss bank account.
No, now you're 0 for 4. Yeah. I still say Merry Christmas.
Well, I will say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays as well, but I'm not sure I fully mean it to some people.
You did the best you could.
I tried. I'm not being a Grinch this year, though, Stu. You should be proud.
Well, I don't know. You mean as you've acted here?
No, in general.
In general.
I'm trying to embrace the season of the holiday spirit.
Good.
But on that note, we're going to say goodbye for now.
Bye now.